Let's draw 3 roofs in Revit. One roof will be over what's called roof 1, which is the lowest part of our building. Then roof 2, which is the C-shaped, very in the middle part of the building. And then roof 3, which is the tallest part of the building. Well, let's start with roof 1 by double-clicking on roof 1 underneath the project browser and underneath floor plans. We'll go to the architecture tab, select on roof. Then underneath properties, make sure on the type selector list that you choose steel truss insulation on metal deck. Make sure that pick walls has been selected. Then put a check mark next to extend to wall core. This will allow us to place the roof in such a location that the walls and the columns can help support that roof up above. We now need to select on the middle of the wall. When we do, we'll have a line going down roughly the middle of the wall. Do the same thing on the 2 sides of the wall. We need to draw a line over from the endpoint of this line over to where the endpoint of this line is located at. Select on line. Where I'd like the roof to go to is up to this edge. So let's click right here at this intersection and then draw the line straight over and then click. Hit escape a couple of times on a keyboard. Select on this line that's going up and down. So that's select on the dot, hold your mouse button down, and then drag it up so it comes to an intersection. What I'd like to do is bring this line over to meet this line. To do that quickly, I'll select on the line and click on Trim Extend the Corner. Select on this line, select on this line, and now they come together and come to a point over here on the end. If we click on the big green check mark, it'll ask, would you like to attach the highlighted walls to the roof? Tell it no. Then we have a roof there in that location. Let's place now a roof up on our level 2. In the project browser, go to roof 2. Underneath the architecture tab, you need to select on roof. Let's start with the pick walls tool. Make sure extend the wall core is selected. That allows us to pick the middle of the wall. Come in. Once we get toward the middle of the wall, click in order to place that line in. Down toward the bottom, do the same thing. Over at this wall and then this wall, do the same thing. Click, then click again. Now I really don't want to use the pick wall tool in locations where we have our curtain walls. I'll select on the line tool. And I'd like the roof to come from this point, which is right on the edge of where the curtain wall is at, down in this direction. So I'll draw it down until it intersects this line, then hit escape a couple of times on the keyboard. Select the line tool. Put somewhere along this surface, come straight down, click there, hit escape a couple of times on the keyboard to get out of drawing the line. Select on either one of these 2 lines, and let's use Trim Extend the Corner to bring these to a nice sharp corner. Do the same thing on the other side. Pick one of the lines, pick the other line, brings these 2 to a corner. Up here in this area, let's draw another line. What I'd like to do is select on line. Then I'd like to draw a line from the intersection of this over in this direction. Hit escape a couple of times on the keyboard. Select on Trim Extend the Corner. Select on your line. Select on the line that's down here so they get brought to that corner. Do the same thing for the other side. Select on the top line. Select on this line to bring them to a corner. Then click on the big green check mark. If it gives you an error message saying that the lines aren't a closed loop, that's okay. Just select on Show. If this dialog box pops up, click on Close. It'll then show you where your error is at. In this case, I need to have a line that goes all the way on across. So I'll click on Continue to this. Click on this line tool. I now want to draw a line from this point over. Then escape a couple of times on the keyboard. Select Trim Extend the Corner. Pick this line, and do the same thing for the other side. Pick this line, then pick this line over here. Then click on the big green check mark. No, we don't want to attach the highlighted walls to the roof, so select No. Now we'll have drawn a second roof right in that area. Now I want to draw a third roof. Go to roof 3. Select on the roof tool. And in this case, I'm going to pick on the rectangle tool. I'm going to come to offset, and I want a 3-foot overhang. So I'm just going to type in 3 foot there. Click on the intersection of this line and this line and makes at the corner of the column that's there. Click once, come across, click on the intersection of this and this point right here. Now I have a 3-foot overhang in each of these locations. and then click on the big green check mark to finish off that part of the roof. Then let's take a look at our roof in a 3D view. And now we can see that we have roofs over each section of our building. What I'd like to do now is create a parapet condition around some of our walls. Right now I have an overhang for this roof, so I really don't want to have a parapet associated with this roof. But we can see that we have roof material coming up above the walls on this roof as well as this roof. So in these locations, it would be nice if we had a parapet set up where these walls would come up above the roof. Let's start by selecting on one of the walls. Underneath properties, we can see for the top constraint, currently this wall is an unconnected height of 20 feet. Well, let's change this to be a 23-foot tall wall. This means it will then have 3 more feet added to the top of this wall. When you do, and then you move your cursor out into this direction, if you click, see that the wall now stretches up and now comes above the height of the roof. Let's do the same thing with this wall. Select on the wall for the top constraint. We can see that this wall is going up to level roof 2. So in this case, it's actually set a little bit differently than what the other wall was. That's okay, because all we need to do now is set an offset value for this wall. So for the top offset, change that to be 3 feet and move your cursor out here. To see this parapet condition, let's select on this front wall that we first selected and then click on this back corner of our view cube. By doing that, it will zoom in, and now we can see that the wall is extending up beyond the edge of the roof. What I like to do now is continue to do this process for the rest of the walls going around our building. In this case, I've got this one little exterior wall. Select on that wall. For the height offset, 3 feet. That raises up. For the rest of these walls, instead of doing each wall individually, let's try to adjust all the walls at the same time. To accomplish that, we'll select on this wall, hold down the Control key on the keyboard, select on this wall, spin the model around by clicking on this corner of the view cube, hold down the Control key, select on this wall. Underneath Properties, for the height offset, which is technically the top offset, change that to 3 feet, move your cursor out here, and then all those walls will adjust on up. For these walls over here, we'll do the same thing. Hold down the Control key to select on multiple walls. These walls have an unconnected height associated with them, so we need to change that to be 23 feet. Move our cursor out here. Those walls then raise themselves up so they're the appropriate height. Our other option would have been to draw walls right along the top of these walls that had those parapet conditions already built in. In other words, you draw a 3-foot tall wall right around the outside edge of our already existing walls. But normally in Revit, you don't need to do that. Any sort of special parapet or top cap condition that can be built into your normal wall, then all you need to do is go up to the appropriate height for the top of the parapet. The next thing I'd like to do is start to add locations where our roof drains will be at. Underneath the project browser, let's first go to our roof 1 floor plan. What I like to do is add 2 roof drains, one on each side of this big roof. We first need to select on the roof itself. Right now, it's a little bit difficult to select on the roof. It's embedded into the wall. So in order to easily select on the roof, I think I'll hide one of the walls. If I select on the top wall, come down to the bottom of the screen and select on the little eyeglasses, which is the temporary hide isolate command, and then select on hide element, which will temporarily hide the wall. When we do, we can now see the outside edge of this roof. If we click on the roof, select on Add Split Line, move your cursor over here to the middle of the roof, click when you get the little triangle shape, and then draw the split line straight down the roof. Draw it down to this point, and when you get that other triangle shape, click again. What we want to do is divide this roof up into 2 halves. The left-hand side will drain down to the roof drain on the left-hand side. The right-hand side will drain to the roof drain on the right-hand side. Once we have the split line in, we can select on Add Point. Then for the elevation, let's just put in -1 inch. Now in reality, this may be a little bit more than -1 inch, depending on what the condition is. But for this model, let's just do -1 inch. Roughly in the middle of this roof, click in order to place a point -1 inch down. You'll see that the roof is now sloping down to that point. Do the same thing on the other side, click, and now you'll have the roof sloping down to that point. Now let's do the same thing with roof number 2. And I like to divide this roof up into 3 different sections. One section will be this area here, a second section will be this area, and the third section will be this area. See if you can highlight on the roof. Once you see the lines going around the outside, they're blue, we know that we've selected on that roof. Click in order to make your selection. At that point, let's add 2 split lines. One from this to this point and another from this point to this point. So select on Add Split Line, click on the point, click when you get to the end of the roof like that, then do the same thing over on the other side. Click on the intersection, come straight up, click when you get to that green dashed line there on the outside. In this case, it looks like I accidentally selected on the wrong spot, so it looks like I'll need to modify this sub-element so it's in a slightly different location. So I'll zoom in, click on Modify Sub-Element, click on the point, hold my mouse button down, and then just drag it over until it's basically straight. Now, if it isn't 100% exact, I'm not going to worry too much about it, but in this case, it looks pretty good going straight across. Once I have those 2 in place, I'll hit Escape a couple times on the keyboard, and now we can see I have a line coming up here and another line coming up here. Now, let's establish where our roof drains need to be. We'll do the same thing. Select on the roof, come up and select on Add Point. For the elevation, once again, I'll just do -1 inch. For the roof drain in the one location, I'll just place the roof drain in roughly this location. Click, and now we can see that the roof is draining down to this spot. I'll do the same thing over in this location. Make sure it's -1 inch. Click, now it's all draining down to this location. And now I'll do the same thing here in the middle. Click, and now it's all draining down to this midpoint. Maybe it should be pulled over a little bit so that we can easily get to funnel all the water out into this location over here. So I'll just select on Modify Sub-Elements, click on the little box that's there, pull it over to whatever location I'd like the roof drain to actually be located at. Finally, I need to do the same sort of thing up on the main roof, but instead of having it drain down to a roof drain, I'd like all the water to just drain away from one point on the roof. I'll hit the Escape key a couple times on the keyboard just to get out of the command, and then come up to Roof 3. Now I could just select on this, add a point, and give it a positive number and put that point right here in the middle. But instead of doing that, what I'll do is I'll actually add a slope to each of these roof conditions. If I select on a roof, I can then come up here to Edit Footprint. I'll highlight over one of these lines, click the Tab key on the keyboard until all 4 of the lines highlight. Click to select all 4 of those lines. That's the outside edge of my roof. I want to define the slope of my roof. So I put a little check mark next to Define Slope, and we can see that underneath Dimensions, it right now has a slope of 912. So maybe just a tiny 112 slope to the roof. Not much of a slope, but it has one. Then I'll click on Apply. Click on the big green check mark. We can see that we have a condition now where all these sides are all coming up to a point. If we take a look at it in a 3D view now, we have the roofs draining down, and there's a slope associated with this part of the roof. To see that a little bit better, click on the roof and then select on Front, which stands for Front Elevation. Spin this around, and now we can take a look at our building from the front. And it looks like, in fact, it is draining down from that center point down off of the roof. And if we want to spin our building around to take a look at our different roof conditions, we can, or either clicking on different corners of the view cube, or by holding down the Shift key and the wheel on the mouse to take a look at how our roof slopes in to the different areas. A gabled roof is one of the most common roofs that you can do. Since our current project does not have a gabled roof in it, I wanted to take us up to this project so we could learn the basics of creating a gable. Underneath the Architecture tab, go to Roof. Go to the Type Selector list and select the Wood Rafter 8-inch roof. Make sure that your base level is set to Level 2. You should always start your roof on whatever the roof level is. In this case, Level 2 is our highest level, so I'd like to use Level 2 as the level that our roof will be drawn on. Select on the Pick Walls tool. Let's provide an overhang of 2 foot for the roof. For the first two walls that we pick, we'll have defined slope checkmarked. These will be the two walls supporting the roof up above that's sloping. Click the upper wall and make sure that the dashed line is on the outside of these walls, because where that dashed line is located at, that's the overhang that we've selected. On the bottom wall, make sure that the dashed line is on the outside. And you can determine that based off of which side of the wall that your cursor is on. Then click. Right now, both of these are set at 9/12 pitches, and that's okay for right now, and we will change that overall roof pitch here in just a moment. Now let's click the Define Slope check mark. We're getting ready to define the side of the roof that has the big angle to it. Select on the wall on the left-hand side, and select on the wall on the right-hand side. Click on the big green check mark. Would you like to attach the highlighted walls to the roof? Select Yes, because that'll automatically clean up the wall conditions. But for this exercise, I'd like to click on No, so in case you ever need to clean up the wall conditions, you know how to do it. And now let's look at this in a 3D view. We can now see that we have a roof. It's coming up and it's at a 9/12 slope. But right now, all the walls are coming up through the roof. So to adjust the walls, highlight over one of the walls. You don't have to click on it just yet. Then select the Tab key on the keyboard. You'll select all the joined walls. Click once in order to select all four of the walls. Above Modify Wall, select Attach Top Base. Then pick on the edge of the roof. It'll automatically clean up those walls with your roof. In fact, if we spin this around by just clicking on one of the corners of the view cube, we'll see that all the walls are now directly underneath the roof. Now I'm going to select on the top corner of the view cube to spin this building back around again. Now, if we wanted to adjust the pitch of the roof, we can do that. Select back on the roof, then underneath Properties, if we scroll down, the slope is 9/12. If we wanted this to be a 6/12 instead, we can change the 9 to a 6. Then either click on Apply or just move your cursor out here, and then you'll see your roof automatically adjust. Not only does the roof adjust, but because we've attached top base of these walls to the roof, it means that the walls too will adjust and always take on the pitch of the gable up above. There are two main concepts that I wanted to introduce when talking about ceilings. The first is where we can find the ceiling command, and that's underneath the Architecture tab, then selecting on Ceiling. You'll get your type selector list underneath Properties. From the type selector list, you can click and then select what type of ceiling that you want to draw off of your type selector list. Now I'll hit the Escape key a couple of times on the keyboard to get out of the command. When you place a ceiling, it should always be in a reflected ceiling plan view, because the floor plan view is looking down at your floor plan, while a reflected ceiling plan view is always looking up toward your ceiling. You always need to be inside of that reflected ceiling plan view. Under the project browser, below floor plans, you'll have ceiling plans. And to go to the reflected ceiling plan, you can just double click on the ceiling plan that you want to place that ceiling on, such as first floor, where we can start to draw in the outside boundaries of our ceilings. To make a new ceiling type, we first need to activate the ceiling command. So under the Architecture tab, select on Ceiling. Then under Properties on the Type Selector list, choose the 2x2 ACT System Ceiling. Then if we click on Edit Type, we can now see we have that 2x2 ACT System Ceiling. What I'd like to do is make a duplicate of this ceiling. So select on Duplicate, and the ceiling I'd like to create will be a gypsum wallboard ceiling on metal stud. Type in GWB on MTL space STD. Gypsum wallboard on metal stud. Then click on OK. Next to Structure, click on Edit. This allows us to edit the structure of the ceiling itself. The material is currently listed as being a default material. I want a metal stud material for the structure, so click where it has default and then select the button. Look for your metal stud material. Click on the metal stud layer, then click on OK. For the overall thickness of the metal stud layer, let's change this to 3 5/8. For the finished layer, and that's going to be the gypsum wallboard layer, it will be 5/8 of an inch thick, so that's okay, but we do need to change that from an acoustical tile material to a gypsum wallboard material. So let's click where it has the acoustical ceiling tile 24 by 24 and then select on the little button next to it. We can see that right now it's set at the acoustic ceiling tile 24 by 24. And the reason why the surface pattern has that display appearance, it's because the surface pattern is set as being a ceiling 24 by 24. Same thing is true with the acoustic ceiling tile 24 by 48. If we select on that material, we can see that it has a different pattern, which is for ceilings which are 24 by 48. What we need to have is a gypsum wallboard. We can select on it. Right now, we can see the gypsum wallboard currently has no pattern associated with it. If we leave it as none, it means that we won't be able to see our ceiling other than the outside edge of the ceiling. But if we want to see the ceiling, we could change its pattern so this gypsum wallboard actually has a surface pattern associated with it. So if we select where it has none, let's scroll down and see if we can find anything that makes sense for a gypsum wallboard. Here we have a gypsum plaster material. That should work really well for us. Click on OK. When we place the ceiling, we should see a bunch of little dots where that ceiling is located at. Now let's click on OK. Click on OK one more time. Now we have this gypsum wallboard ceiling on metal stud. Click on OK one more time. What I'd like to do now is exchange one of the ceilings that's currently inside of this project with this kind of ceiling. Hit the escape key a couple times on the keyboard to get out of the ceiling command. Select on the ceiling here in the hallway area. And I'll change this to that gypboard ceiling that we just created. Choose the GWB on metal stud. And now we can see it has that dotted pattern, and now it has that new ceiling style because we selected that type off of the type selector list. These are the basics behind placing light fixtures in a Revit environment. Let's start by going to one of two different tabs. If you have Revit Architecture, your best bet is to go to the Architecture tab and then select on Component. If you have just plain Revit or Revit MVP, go to the Systems tab, go to Electrical, and then select Lighting Fixture. In either case, you'll end up getting your light fixtures. In this case, I'll go to Architecture and then select on Component. Underneath Properties, there's actually a wide variety of different light fixtures that I could select from. And the first kind of light I'd like to place is the Troffer Light 2x4 Parabolic. The one that I want to place is the 2x4 2 lamp. And I'd like to place that 2 lamp directly inside of this area here. That has an elevation, and right now it'll try to place it 8 feet above ground. This kind of light has an elevation associated with it. We need to tell it what elevation it actually needs to be at. In this case, maybe 9 feet above ground because this has 9-foot ceilings. Move the light to the location where we'd like it to be at. You notice that it does not automatically snap to your grid location. So what I usually do is I just place the light a very far distance away from the grid so that I know that it's not actually on the grid. After clicking to place it, hit the escape key a few times on the keyboard, then select on the light, come up here to move, click the intersection, drag it over here to the edge. Do the same thing. Select move, drag it down to the edge to move it into position. I usually use the copy command to copy it to multiple locations. Come up here to copy, click the intersection of these two, come down. We can see that I actually missed the intersection there, so I would need to adjust it after the fact, and I can do that pretty easily. Make another one over here, and then make another copy up here. It appears that when I pick my original base point, in fact, I missed it. I just need to select on the light, hold down the Control key to select on multiple ones, use Move, click that point, and now I have my light fixtures in 4 different locations within this space. At this point, I could continue to just click and start to copy them down, or I could window around a grouping of them like these 4 by just clicking and windowing around them, and then using the copy command to copy them down to some of the other spots. So if I select on copy, I'll zoom in here so I know that I get the intersection this time. I'll come down to here, click the intersection there, come down into the next space, click that intersection, click this intersection. In this case, though, I don't really like the spacing that I have between my lights, so I'll select on these 2 lights, hit the delete key on the keyboard to remove my lights. If I want to move these up, hold down the control key, select on both the lights, use the move command, then move them up to the position I'd like them to be at. Once I have the lights where I like them in the room, I'll come up here, use the copy command, click on the lights, hold down the control key to select on multiple lights, click copy, click the intersection, come down, click again in order to place my lights into those spaces. There's another kind of light fixture that I can place. If I come up to the architecture tab one more time, go to component, go to my type selector list, and instead of these 2x4 parabolics, I could place these 2x2 parabolics into spaces. And I'd like to place these into the restroom areas. I'll select where it has this 2x2 2 lamp. Technically, I do have an elevation, but I'm not too worried about that because I have the ability to come over here and do what's called place on face. This elevation is really if I decide to place it on a vertical face, which would be like the side of a wall. With this light fixture, I can place it on the face of the ceiling, and it will automatically inherit the height of that ceiling that I'm placing it on. You notice that I still can't snap, but I can get it close, click on it, use the move command, move it into place, and then I can copy it to all the different locations I'd like it to be at. So in this case, I'll just start to copy it down, place another one right in this location. As I'm using the copy command, it's trying to keep me in straight lines. And the reason is there's a little check mark next to constrain. So I can clear the constrain checkbox and then I can copy it to whatever location I like here inside the bathroom area. Window around these three fixtures, use the move command to move this over, then use the copy command to copy some more lights over here to the side. Now at this stage, I could either copy these over or I could use the mirror command to mirror these over to this ceiling. Click, hold my mouse button down, and just window around just those lights. If I had selected more things than just the light, I could come up here to the filter, clear the checkboxes next to anything that's not a light fixture, click on OK, go to Mirror Draw Axis to mirror it around a point, such as clicking roughly the midpoint of this right here. I may not quite get it just right, so I may need to readjust those lights, come down, click to mirror those to the other side. Now we can see they're highlighted in blue, which means if I use the move command, move them to a better location. Finally, if I wanted to place some lights over here, come up here to components, I could either use these lights or I could use the other lights, and in this case I'll use that other light category. But in this case I think I'll use the 4 lamp. Move these lights into position, select on the light, I'll use the move command, move it to where it needs to be at, then use the copy command to copy these lights into these areas. If for some reason they're a little bit off, remember we can always use the move command to move them back into position. Window around there, use the move command. Click on them, move them up. Use the copy command to copy these 2 over. Placing lights is a bit of a manual process. You need to select on the lights and copy them from spot to spot. Also, if you want to place your lights, you have 2 different options depending on what kind of light fixture it is. Certain light fixtures, when you place them in, you need to set an elevation for those kinds of light fixtures. Some will only attach themselves actually to ceilings. Still others are face-based, which means that you can attach them to the face of the ceiling. So you either have ceiling-based light fixtures that can be a certain height off of a level, and then face-based light fixtures, which can attach to the face of any object inside of Revit.